Hello, my furniture friends. Katie here from Salvaged by K. Scott. I'm about to start work on this little 3-drawer dresser that I pulled out of someone's trash a few weeks ago on my way home from a grocery store run. It was definitely in the garbage for good reason, but I'm pretty sure that with a good clean, a few repairs, and a fresh coat of paint that I can get this thing back into beautiful, usable condition again and keep it out of the landfill. So this dresser has a pretty traditional vintage look to it, but after taking a quick look at the construction with the hardboard back and bottom, and especially these drawer tracks, this is a fairly modern piece of furniture that's literally been used to death. And holy cow, this thing is dirty. I think it's been outside for a while, and the road where I found it has been under construction. It's just caked in dust that's gotten wet and then turned into mud. So a really good scrub is in order. There are also a few big splits between the boards that make up this top, but the good news is that means that the top is solid, so it should be pretty easy to repair. I'm going to get started by busting out the shop vac to suck up some of this crud, and then I'll take my time really deep cleaning each surface with some Simple Green hot water and my power scrubber drill attachment wherever I need it. I'm planning on using some new knobs on the drawers so I can take off these colonial style handles, and I'll tuck them in a Ziploc bag and drop them off the next time I head to the thrift store. The front and sides of these drawers are all wood, but the bottoms are the same hardboard that's on the back of this dresser. It's not the greatest material, but they did clean up much better than I was expecting, so I'll probably just add some liners to them before I finish this one up. The panel on the back, though, is just not looking so hot, so I think I'm just going to pry this right off and I'll grab a new piece from the hardware store and replace it. And these drawer tracks are rusted pretty badly, so I think I'm going to pull these out of the box and I'll just order some replacement ones on Amazon. Okay, now that I've got this thing clean, I can work on these separated boards. I'm putting some painter's tape on the underside here so that I can get some wood glue in the gaps and not have it drip right through on me. And to get the glue where I need it, I'm going to use a large gauge blunt syringe. I shoved my painter's tool into the cracks to open them up just a tiny bit more, and then loaded up those gaps with glue and used a few big bar clamps to bring the sections back together and hold everything in place while it dries. That's going to take a little while to cure up, so I'm going to work on filling in these old hardware holes next. I just popped a piece of tape on the inside of those too so that I can fill them all the way through and not lose anything out the back. And I'm going to use some Bondo here. This is a 2-part epoxy where you mix the putty with a separate hardening agent that causes it to cure. And then it's even harder than the actual wood, and you can even drill right into it again. I've got to pop the other part of these tracks off of the drawers, and then I'm just going to let this dry and cure for a few hours. I'm using some pretty coarse 80 grit sandpaper to smooth out the seams and get as many of the other scratches and dents out of this top as I can. And then I'll use a foam abrasive to get around the edge detail without accidentally grinding it flat or misshaping it at all. Then I switched to some slightly less aggressive 120 grit to scuff up the rest of the surfaces, remove any of that old finish that's already starting to flake away, and smooth out the filler on the drawers. I cleaned up all of the dust with a microfiber cloth, and now I'm ready to start priming. I think this wood is actually cherry, and it's got a red toned cherry stain on it. And I've got a pretty good hunch that this one is going to be a bleeder. I prime with this shellac-based bin primer 99% of the time anyway, because it's so good at blocking in stains and odors, and it sticks like glue to almost any surface, so it's good insurance under most paints. It's completely miserable to clean out of my sprayer though, so I prefer to roll it on. And this is bleed through. As soon as I got this wet, it started leaching that stain right up through the primer. Sometimes it happens instantly. Sometimes it doesn't happen for a few hours or days. Sometimes it doesn't happen when you put on your paint, but then it happens when you apply your top coat. But it happens. It just happens. And it isn't actually the tannins in the wood that I usually worry about doing it on here. It's the stain that's on the wood that's causing this discoloration, the bleeding. So I kept working my way over all of the surfaces, and sure enough, anywhere where I had exposed that layer of stain, I got an ugly brown spot peeking through, but this shellac should seal it in as it dries. I left that first coat to dry for about an hour and then rolled on a second layer, hoping that that would be enough to hold things back, but the stain started coming back up again pretty quickly. I put a little bit of wood filler just on that tiny crack left on the top, and then I also saw these big ugly seams around the skirting trim, so I decided to fill those in with some paintable caulking to make them less obvious. I just squeezed a bead along the joint and then used a wet finger to push it in and simultaneously scoop away the excess, and then a wet paper towel to get the rest. It might seem like a silly detail to fuss over, but it really does make a massive impact on the overall finished look of the project. I did leave that second layer of my shellac primer for a few hours, hoping that it would cure up again. And then I came back and sanded the filler smooth. I was really sure that those stains were under control now and that this third layer of primer would be all I needed. But as I worked my way around the dresser, again, that crap just kept coming through. I've only ever had 2 projects where this shellac-based primer couldn't contain the stain, and on both of those, I had some other furniture friends steer me in the direction of cover stain. This is an oil-based stain blocking primer, and fingers crossed, the combination of it and those 3 coats of shellac I've already done will tame this beast. I rolled on 2 more coats with the cover stain and left everything alone to get a good dry overnight. Now I think I'm finally good to move on from the primer stage. I'm just going to give the whole dresser a really light once over with some 400 grit sandpaper to smooth out a bit of that roller texture, but not remove too much of this nice candy coating that I've worked so hard to create. And then I can get myself set up for paint. I'm painting this in Wise Owl Paint's 1 Hour Enamel in their color Celtic Fog. This is a really fast drying, hard wearing enamel that doesn't need any additional top coating, and I'm going to be spraying it on with my gravity fed HVLP pneumatic gun. I poured about half of this quart through a paint strainer, hooked up my sprayer to the air compressor, and just tested out my spray pattern before moving over to the dresser. That first coat of paint dried for about 2 hours, and then when I came back out for this second, I wasn't really loving the way that these seams down the sides were looking either, and I found one little drip where I had my gun too close to the surface, so I filled in those cracks with some more caulking and then sanded that drip smooth and ended up giving the rest of the dresser another quick sand too. So I've sprayed on 2 more coats, waiting the same 2 hours in between, with no more sanding though this time. And in the morning, I should be ready to start putting things back together. To measure out where I need to drill my new holes for the knobs that I have, I put my painter's tape in the center and then just use a straight edge running from corner to corner on the panel to find the exact center. X marks the spot. And I need to drill some new pilot holes in the bottom edge of the drawers to attach these new tracks so that when I screw them on, the wood doesn't split. And then I'll attach the new pieces that go on the inside of the dresser right where the old one sat. I used my pneumatic staple gun to quickly attach my new clean backer board. And here's a reminder of where we started with this one. Filthy and falling apart. And here is where we've landed. I absolutely love this soft, foggy green, but I don't know if I'm completely sold on these knobs. I might have to look online and see if I can find something else for this one. Let me know what you think or any suggestions you may have as far as that goes. But this dresser fits really nicely into my dining room here, so I think I might have to hang on to it for a little bit. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone who might find it useful. I really appreciate you spending a bit of your day with me today. I'll leave a few more furniture fixing videos here for you to watch next, and I will catch you all next time.